Have you ever wondered why some women don't chase attention, yet every room seems to turn toward them? It's not beauty, it's not status. It's the quiet power of a woman who has learned to master herself. There is a quiet revolution that begins within a woman the moment she chooses discipline over distraction. It is not the discipline that exhausts or punishes, but the one that honors. It's the kind of discipline that whispers, "I love myself enough to show up for me." Each morning she wakes with an unspoken promise to herself, a vow to treat her body as a temple and her mind as sacred ground. She does not need applause for it. She does not announce her routines or document her transformation. Her consistency is silent, but its results are thunder. She has learned that discipline is not about rigidity. It is about rhythm. It's the rhythm of waking with intention, feeding her spirit before the world makes demands of her. It's stretching her body in gratitude, sitting with her thoughts before rushing into noise. It's choosing nourishment over numbness, alignment over approval, peace over performance. Through discipline, she has discovered a secret. Freedom does not come from doing whatever you want. It comes from mastering what you choose. And so, every small promise she keeps to herself becomes a quiet thread weaving confidence into her soul. Discipline is her self-respect in motion, the art of devotion to one's own evolution. Because the more she shows up for herself, the less she needs others to validate her worth. Every sunrise becomes her sanctuary, every breath a reminder that she is not waiting for a perfect moment. She is creating it through her presence. Yet discipline alone does not make her radiant. What makes her glow from within is how she learns to pair that discipline with surrender, the power of non-resistance. There was a time when she fought everything, the plans that changed, the people who disappointed, the endings she never wanted. She wrestled with life as if her will alone could force it into obedience. But there comes a point where exhaustion becomes enlightenment. She realizes that resistance is the root of her suffering, not the circumstances themselves. She begins to understand that peace doesn't come from controlling the river, it comes from learning to flow with it. So she stops fighting what she cannot change. She learns to trust the current, even when it carries her through unfamiliar waters. And as she releases her grip, she discovers something miraculous, that life has been for her all along. Even the heartbreaks were teachers, even the detours were directions, even the silence was guidance. Her non-resistance is not resignation, it is wisdom in motion. It is the deep knowing that not every battle deserves her energy, and not every storm requires her fight. She has learned to let some things pass through her without leaving bruises. Her calm is not a lack of emotion, it's the presence of perspective. She bends like the willow, flexible and alive, unbroken even when the winds roar. Because she knows that resilience isn't about holding tight. It's about releasing with grace. And the beauty of it is this: once she stops resisting, she starts receiving. The moment she stops trying to force life, life begins to unfold for her. Opportunities find her in the spaces she used to fill with worry. People who match her peace begin to appear as she no longer entertains chaos. Her energy becomes a mirror, reflecting harmony into every area of her existence. She realizes that her greatest power was never in control, but in surrender. From this surrender blossoms something even deeper, the silence of self-worth. For a long time, she mistook volume for value. She explained herself to those who never truly listened, justified her dreams to those who could not understand them, and defended her heart to those who had never earned access to it. But when she stopped fighting, something shifted. She no longer felt the need to prove. Her silence became her sanctuary. Self-worth, she learns, doesn't announce itself. It hums quietly in the way she walks, in the way she looks at herself in the mirror without flinching, in the way she declines invitations that don't feed her soul. It is the gentle calm that comes when she no longer fears being misunderstood, Because she finally understands not everyone needs to know her truth. Some truths are meant to be lived, not explained. Her silence is not empty. It is full of trust, full of grace, full of power. She no longer seeks validation from the outside because she has found peace on the inside. And when a woman reaches that place, something magnetic happens. Her energy begins to speak louder than her words ever could. People feel her authenticity before she even opens her mouth. They sense her boundaries without her having to draw them. Her presence becomes poetry, subtle but unforgettable. This silence of self-worth changes everything about how she moves through the world. She no longer rushes, she no longer chases, she no longer fears solitude, because she knows that being alone is not the same as being lonely. In her quiet, she becomes her own witness, observing her growth, her patience, her resilience. And it's through this inner stillness that she begins to understand the real essence of strength. Strength isn't the ability to endure everything. It's the wisdom to know what deserves endurance. It's the grace to let go of what drains your light, the maturity to stay silent when provoked, and the courage to choose softness even when life feels harsh. Her discipline has given her structure. Her non-resistance has given her flow. Her self-worth has given her peace. Together, they create harmony. The dance of control and surrender, effort and ease, action and stillness. She no longer lives at war with herself. The woman who once fought to be seen now glows quietly in her own company. The woman who once demanded love now radiates it naturally. She no longer needs to prove her strength. She simply lives it. And this, perhaps, is the most magnetic transformation of all. She has become the embodiment of balance, disciplined yet flexible, powerful yet peaceful, silent yet deeply understood. She has learned that true beauty is not in perfection, but in alignment. So when she moves now, she moves differently, not out of urgency, but out of intention. When she speaks, her words carry weight because they are rooted in truth. And when she falls silent, the silence itself speaks for her. A silence born of knowing, of peace, of quiet certainty that she has nothing to prove and everything to be. This is the quiet radiance of a woman who has become her own home. Her discipline gives her foundation. Her surrender gives her freedom. Her self-worth gives her light. Together, they make her irresistible. Not because she tries to be, but because she finally remembers who she is. There comes a sacred point in a woman's journey where she begins to realize that not every emotion deserves a throne in her mind. For so long, her heart had been a battlefield, torn between wanting to feel everything deeply and wanting to escape the weight of those feelings. She mistook emotional storms for passion and constant reaction for authenticity. But with time, she learns that true power is not in feeling less, it's in mastering how she feels. Emotional mastery is not suppression. It's not the denial of pain or the hiding of tears. It is the art of holding your heart with gentle hands, whispering to it, "I see you, but you do not rule me." She starts to recognize that emotions are not enemies, they are messengers. Anger tells her where her boundaries have been crossed. Sadness reminds her of what she values. Fear shows her where faith must grow. And love teaches her everything else. She no longer rushes to fix her feelings. She allows them to pass through her like waves. When disappointment rises, she sits with it. When joy visits, she savors it. When anger burns, she cools it with understanding. The woman who once drowned in her emotions now learns to surf their tides. Her peace is not found in avoiding feeling, but in moving through feeling with awareness. There's a quiet elegance in this kind of mastery. It shows in how she responds instead of reacts, in how she pauses before she speaks, in how she looks at conflict and asks, "What is this trying to teach me?" That the more she understands her emotions, the less she's enslaved by them. And in that freedom, she discovers a calm that others mistake for mystery. But the journey doesn't stop there. Because when a woman begins to master her emotions, she also learns the sacred art of letting go. Letting go is not something she does once. It becomes a way of living. She starts to see that life is not about accumulation, but alignment. It's not about holding everything together. It's about holding what's meant for her and releasing what's not. At first, letting go feels like death. The death of dreams, of people, of versions of herself she once loved. She cries for the things that slipped through her hands, not realizing that some things were never meant to stay. But as she releases what has expired, she begins to notice something strange. Peace starts to bloom in the spaces once filled with grasping. Letting go becomes an act of faith, a deep trust that what is leaving is clearing space for what will arrive. She no longer chases closure from others because she has found it within herself. She no longer begs life to return what's gone because she knows that life only removes what her soul has outgrown. She understands that love can still be real even if it doesn't last, that loss can still be beautiful if it taught her truth. This freedom transforms her. The woman who once clung now floats. The woman who once controlled now allows. The woman who once feared endings now sees them as beginnings wearing different names. She becomes like the river, flowing, unresisting, trusting its own current. And from that surrender comes a new kind of light, the glow of self-respect. It's not loud, not boastful, not self-centered. It's quiet, like the morning sun rising slowly over still water. It's the way she looks at herself in the mirror and no longer searches for validation in her reflection. It's the way she carries herself, shoulders back, chin lifted, eyes steady, not to prove she's strong, but because she finally knows she is. Self-respect changes everything. It's the root of her peace, the anchor of her energy, the silent standard by which she lives. It teaches her that not every opinion deserves attention, not every invitation deserves acceptance, and not every person deserves access. She no longer pours herself into cracked vessels hoping they will hold her light. She saves her light for spaces that can reflect it back. And with self-respect comes a different kind of beauty, the kind that cannot be faked or bought or borrowed. It's in the way she no longer chases validation because she has become her own approval. It's in the way she can walk away from anything that threatens her inner calm, not out of pride, but out of wisdom. She knows her peace is too precious to negotiate. There's something magnetic about a woman who has mastered her emotions, who can let go without bitterness, and who stands firm in her own worth. She moves with quiet assurance, not needing to prove her value because she lives it. Her confidence doesn't roar, it radiates. She becomes a sanctuary, not just for herself, but for everyone who comes near her. Those who once took advantage of her kindness now find themselves disarmed by her boundaries. Those who once fed off her chaos no longer recognize the stillness she carries. She doesn't need to argue, to convince, or to justify. Her energy speaks for her. Her peace is her defense. Her self-respect is her language. And perhaps the most profound transformation is that she no longer seeks to be understood by everyone. She understands herself, and that is enough. She no longer asks life to be easy. She asks for strength and grace to meet whatever comes. Her emotional mastery keeps her steady. Her letting go keeps her free. Her self-respect keeps her radiant. She walks through her days with the calmness of someone who has met her own depths and returned stronger. She has felt pain and still chosen kindness. She has faced loss and still chosen gratitude. She has been broken and still chosen beauty. And that choice is what makes her truly irresistible. There is something extraordinary about a woman who has met every version of herself and decided to love them all. She is not hardened by life. She is polished by it. Every heartbreak has made her wiser. Every ending has made her lighter. Every act of letting go has made her freer. She is no longer afraid of change because she has become the change. Her energy no longer wavers with the opinions of others. She moves like water, calm on the surface. Deep underneath, there is no arrogance in her stillness, only the quiet dignity of a soul at peace. She knows that her emotions are sacred guides, not masters. That letting go is not losing, it's evolving. That self-respect is not isolation, it's illumination. And so she lives not to impress, not to prove, but simply to be honest, to be kind, to be whole. The world may not always understand her peace, but it will always feel it. Because her presence now carries the energy of someone who has made peace with herself. And that, more than anything, is what makes her truly irresistible. There is a quiet kind of love that does not cling. It doesn't demand, it doesn't control, it doesn't possess. It allows. A woman who has lived long enough to know the difference between attachment and connection begins to walk with a softer, freer heart. She has learned that holding too tightly suffocates what was meant to breathe. Detachment is not the absence of love. It is the purification of it. She begins to understand that love, when pure, doesn't seek to cage or claim. It doesn't whisper, "You are mine," but rather, "You are free." Oh, in this freedom she finds herself again. The same love that once made her lose her balance now teaches her how to stand on her own 2 feet. She learns to love without losing herself, to give without emptying her soul, to care without carrying the weight of another's choices. Detachment doesn't mean she stops feeling, it means she starts seeing clearly. It allows her to witness life without trying to rewrite it. She no longer forces outcomes or manipulates timing. She has tasted the exhaustion of trying to hold on to what was never meant to stay. And so she opens her hands and lets life move through her. Like a tree that doesn't beg the wind to stay still, she lets relationships flow, seasons shift, and people change. And somehow, through this letting go, she experiences a deeper kind of peace. She loves differently now, not with desperation, but with devotion, not with fear, but with faith. She knows that the ones meant for her will meet her in the middle, that what is real will never require begging or proving. Her love has matured. It no longer burns to consume, it glows to illuminate. It is steady, kind, and self-sustaining. From this awareness grows something even more powerful. The strength of authenticity. The woman who has let go of pretending finally steps into the light of who she truly is. For years, she might have worn masks to fit, softened her voice to please, or hidden her truth to belong. But there comes a day when pretending becomes too heavy a burden for her spirit to bear. She realizes that her peace cannot coexist with pretense. Authenticity feels like exhaling after years of holding her breath. It's the courage to stand in her own essence, even when it makes others uncomfortable. It's speaking truth with love, setting boundaries without guilt, and showing up raw, unfiltered, and real. It's choosing alignment over acceptance. She no longer seeks to impress the crowd, she honors her own reflection. This kind of honesty radiates. It moves differently, slow, grounded, unhurried. Because when a woman stops performing, she becomes magnetic. People are drawn to her not because she's flawless, but because she's real. Her laughter carries the warmth of sincerity. Her silence speaks of inner confidence. She doesn't hide her scars. She wears them like constellations, proof of the darkness she has navigated and the light she has become. But authenticity also requires courage. The courage to disappoint those who only loved her mask. And that's the part that breaks her open. She loses people who once adored the version of her that kept them comfortable. Yet with every loss, she gains something invaluable: peace. The peace that comes from knowing she no longer has to shrink to be loved. From this truth arises her next evolution: grace under fire. Because life, in its unpredictable rhythm, will always test authenticity. There will be storms that challenge her peace, people who misunderstand her calm for arrogance, and moments when her patience feels stretched thin. But she has learned that her grace is not dependent on circumstances. It is born from within. Grace is her way of standing tall when everything around her tries to pull her down. It's how she remains composed when provoked, how she chooses silence over chaos, how she forgives without needing apology. Grace doesn't mean she tolerates disrespect. It means she refuses to let bitterness corrupt her spirit. When life throws flames at her, she doesn't fight fire with fire. She becomes water, cool, steady, flowing. She doesn't need to prove that she's unbothered. She simply embodies calmness. Her energy says what her words no longer need to. She's been through enough storms to know that losing her peace is too high a price to pay for temporary vindication. Grace is not weakness, it's wisdom in its purest form. It's the realization that you can't control others, but you can control your own vibration. It's the art of maintaining dignity, even when surrounded by disrespect. And it's through this grace that she becomes untouchable. Not because she is immune to pain, but because she no longer lets pain define her. She understands now that power is not found in dominance, but in self-governance. The woman who can remain kind while being tested, calm while being provoked, and loving while being hurt. That is a woman who has mastered herself. Her grace isn't performative, it's spiritual. It's a quiet dialogue between her soul and the universe saying, A, I trust the process. E, in her detachment she learns freedom. In her authenticity she finds truth. In her grace she discovers strength. These qualities weave together like threads of silk, forming the tapestry of her maturity. Each one reflects a lesson learned through fire, each one earned through surrender, each one transforming her into something rarer than beauty, serenity. She no longer needs to win arguments or justify her choices. She's not chasing validation or vengeance. She's walking lightly through life, anchored in her essence. Her love is pure, her truth unshakable, her presence unmovable. She has become the calm in her own storm. There's a kind of glow that comes from such evolution, a radiance that doesn't come from makeup, youth, or fashion, but from alignment. It's the glow of a woman who has met her darkness and chosen light. The glow of one who has been tested by life and decided to respond with grace. The glow of one who loves deeply, but without attachment, who speaks truthfully, but without cruelty, who moves powerfully, but without pride. This is the woman who no longer runs from herself. Her heart is open, but her boundaries are firm. Her love is deep, but her peace is deeper. And her grace, it is her armor, invisible, yet impenetrable. The beauty of her journey lies not in what she has gained, but in what she has released, illusions, expectations, and the need to be understood. She has become like the ocean, vast, calm, and full of depth, unseen from the surface. Those who encounter her sense something eternal in her silence, something unexplainable in her smile. She is not trying to be irresistible. She simply is, because she has finally become one with her truth. There comes a point in a woman's journey when her silence begins to speak louder than her words. It is not the silence of suppression, but the silence of understanding. The kind that no longer demands to be heard because it already knows its worth. When a woman reaches that stillness within, something magnetic awakens around her. You can feel her energy before she speaks. You can sense her wisdom without needing to ask for it. That quiet, grounded presence is what makes her irresistible. The kind of woman who no longer argues to prove her point has learned the subtle art of peace. She no longer fights every misunderstanding or justifies every decision, because she knows that truth doesn't always need an audience. She understands that maturity is not about always being right. It's about being aligned. Aligned with her values, her emotions, her peace. And when she senses that her energy is being drained by things that don't deserve her attention, she withdraws with grace. She doesn't storm out, she simply walks away, like water retreating from a shore it no longer wishes to touch. This kind of self-restraint is not coldness, It's emotional wisdom. Because she knows that not every situation needs a reaction. Not every insult deserves a response. And not every person can meet her at the depth of her understanding. She has stopped demanding emotional literacy from those who haven't yet learned their own alphabet of healing. She no longer chases validation because she has found something more stable, her inner grounding. When you encounter such a woman, it feels like standing near a calm ocean. You can sense her depth, but it doesn't need to roar to be respected. It's simply Aisa. And that's her power. Quiet, steady, unbothered. She knows that energy is currency, and she spends it only on what brings her closer to peace, not chaos. And from this calmness, something even more beautiful begins to unfold. The strength of emotional boundaries. The mature woman understands that love does not mean limitless access. She can care deeply, but she no longer allows others to drain her spirit. She gives without losing herself. She can stand close without being consumed. Her kindness is not naive, it's intentional. She has learned that protecting her peace is not selfish. It's sacred. In her younger years, she might have confused love with sacrifice and connection with constant availability. But now, she knows that the people who truly value her will never demand that she shrink to fit their comfort. They will never take offense to her boundaries, because they too understand that love breathes freely only when space is respected. She has learned to say no without guilt and yes without fear, because every decision now flows from alignment, not approval. She doesn't allow guilt to manipulate her, nor fear to silence her. Her energy is intentional, and that is what makes her radiant. People feel her energy differently. Some admire her, some misunderstand her, but all are affected by her. Because a woman with boundaries emits a frequency of respect that cannot be ignored. It's the kind of energy that makes others think twice before they cross her lines. Not because she threatens, but because her peace commands reverence. This understanding of space also teaches her how to love better. She doesn't cling or control. She allows life to move through her, trusting that what's meant for her will recognize her peace and stay. Not out of need, but out of resonance. And perhaps the most magnetic quality of all is this: she no longer hides her softness behind her strength, because she has learned that the two were never enemies. The mature woman doesn't perform hardness to be respected. She knows that her sensitivity is not a weakness. It's her gift. Her emotions are not something to tame. They are something to understand. She has learned to express without begging to be understood. Her tears are not signs of fragility. They are proof that she feels deeply, that her heart is still alive in a world that often rewards numbness. She knows how to cry without collapsing, how to love without losing herself, and how to walk away without closing her heart. That is true power, the ability to stay open even after the world has tried to harden her. Her strength is quiet because it no longer needs an audience. She's not trying to prove that she's strong. She just Aisa. It's in the way she keeps her peace in chaos, in the way she forgives without forgetting her boundaries, in the way she chooses kindness without allowing anyone to exploit it. And that's what makes her energy magnetic. It's not her looks, her achievements, or her charm. It's her peace. Her inner stillness radiates in ways words cannot explain. It's the kind of energy that heals without trying. The kind of presence that feels like home in a world full of noise. Every choice she makes is infused with awareness. Every word she speaks carries weight because it comes from reflection, not reaction. You begin to realize that this kind of woman doesn't rush. She doesn't chase. She doesn't seek to impress, because she understands something profound. The more you chase, the more you tell life you are incomplete. So she allows things to flow. She trusts the rhythm of timing, the unfolding of moments, the quiet intelligence of the universe. She knows that what's hers will not require force, and what requires constant effort to hold together is not truly aligned. And because she lives from that truth, she becomes magnetic to peace, abundance, and authentic love. Not because she's lucky, but because she's aligned. Her energy tells the world, I am enough, and the world responds with resonance. There's something almost divine about such calm confidence. The way she holds herself, the way she listens without judgment, the way she looks at people not to analyze, but to understand. You can feel that she's not competing with anyone, not rushing to catch up, not performing to be seen. She's simply a being. And in her being, she inspires others to slow down, breathe, and remember their own center. She has learned that true attraction doesn't come from trying to be desirable. It comes from being whole. And the more she embraces her wholeness, the more the world seems to bend toward her with respect and admiration. There is a kind of maturity that no age can teach. It is born only through self-awareness, heartbreak, healing, and surrender. The mature woman carries that wisdom quietly in her smile, in her calm, in the way she moves through both joy and pain with grace. Her irresistibility doesn't come from effort. It comes from essence, from being rooted in herself, from knowing who she is, what she deserves, and what she will never again accept. And when you witness that kind of woman, you don't just see her, you feel her. Her presence lingers, her words echo. Her energy leaves an imprint on your spirit, reminding you of what it means to be whole. Because she has learned the sacred truth that beauty fades, but energy remains. Charm attracts, but character keeps. And it's her depth, not her appearance, that truly draws others near. So she walks through life, not chasing love, but embodying it. Not seeking validation, but radiating truth. And in that alignment between her soul and her choices, she becomes unstoppable. She becomes free. She becomes the kind of woman the world cannot forget. There comes a stage in a woman's evolution when she no longer tries to control how others perceive her. She understands now that perception is a mirror, not of her truth, but of their understanding, and she no longer wastes her sacred energy explaining herself to those committed to misunderstanding her. She realizes that the need to be liked was never a reflection of love, but of fear. The fear of being unseen, unloved, unaccepted. But now, she stands in her fullness, radiating the kind of peace that only comes when you no longer chase approval. This surrender is not defeat, it's liberation. Because the moment she stopped trying to make everyone comfortable, she finally became comfortable in her own skin. She discovered that peace is not found in everyone agreeing with her. Peace is found in standing firm in her own values, even when others disapprove. There's a quiet beauty in no longer needing to defend your truth. It allows you to breathe again, to live freely again. And when a woman reaches that state, something within her softens, not into weakness, but into wisdom. She understands now that not every battle is hers to fight. Not every opinion deserves her voice, and not every rejection is meant to wound her. Some rejections are protection. Some distances are divine. Some endings are beginnings wrapped in disguise. She begins to see life not as something happening to her, but as something unfolding through her. Every wound becomes a teacher. Every silence, a sanctuary. Every delay, a lesson in patience. And she no longer resists what leaves, because she trusts what stays will meet her with equal depth. It is in this surrender that her magnetism grows. There is something undeniably captivating about a woman who no longer fights against the flow of life. Her calm becomes contagious, her stillness healing. People feel safe in her presence, not because she promises to fix them, but because she reminds them of what it feels like to be home within themselves. This kind of woman doesn't rush outcomes anymore. She doesn't force what isn't ready. She doesn't manipulate love, timing, or people, because she's learned that everything forced eventually fractures. She's walked through enough illusions to know that peace cannot grow in control. So she flows, gracefully, intentionally, like a river that doesn't question the shape of the stones it touches. She trusts that every curve, Every obstacle, every detour is guiding her toward her ocean. Her energy becomes lighter, her laughter freer, her presence more grounded. She's no longer anxious to arrive, because she understands that the journey is the destination. When she speaks, her words no longer come from insecurity. They rise from clarity. She doesn't speak to prove her wisdom. She speaks to share her truth. She doesn't try to impress, she seeks to connect. And in that authenticity, she becomes magnetic. Because what's more irresistible than someone who's at peace with themselves? Someone who can love without losing herself, who can forgive without reopening old wounds, who can let go without resentment. That's the mark of a truly awakened woman. One who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't control. She simply attracts through her alignment. And alignment is a quiet thing. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It whispers through intuition, through gut feelings, through the subtle discomfort that arises when something doesn't fit your spirit anymore. She's learned to listen to that whisper now. It has become her compass. Once upon a time, she ignored those signs, staying where her soul felt restless, trying to prove her loyalty at the expense of her peace. But now, she knows that staying silent in the face of her own discomfort is a betrayal of self. And she will never again abandon her intuition just to keep something that's no longer meant for her. Her intuition has become her closest ally, not an echo of fear, but a pulse of truth. It speaks softly but clearly. It tells her when to stay, when to go, when to speak, when to remain still. And she honors it, because she's learned that intuition is not the voice of reason. It's the voice of remembrance. It's her soul remembering who she truly is and what she's here for. With that awareness, she no longer fears solitude. In fact, she welcomes it. Solitude for her is not loneliness anymore. It's a return to essence. It's where she reconnects with her divine rhythm, where she recharges the light she gives so freely to the world. In her solitude, she learns that stillness doesn't mean stagnation. It means depth. It means listening, not just to the world, but to the whispers of her own heart. And in that space of quiet, she rediscovers her own rhythm, one that doesn't depend on anyone's approval or timing. It's in that solitude she realizes that true beauty has nothing to do with appearance. True beauty is the calm energy that surrounds a woman who's at peace with her past, aligned with her present, and hopeful for her future. It's the way her eyes carry both wisdom and wonder, the way her smile feels like safety, the way her silence speaks love without words. People often mistake her calm for distance, but it isn't distance. It's discernment. She no longer allows everyone access to her energy because she's learned that not everyone comes with pure intentions. Her peace has become sacred ground, and not everyone is invited to walk there. And yet, she is not guarded. She is open, but with awareness. Loving, but with wisdom. Kind, but with boundaries. She gives, but no longer bleeds. That balance, that rare harmony between heart and mind, that's what makes her radiant. You can see it in the way she walks into a room. She doesn't demand attention, it just naturally follows her, not because of what she wears, but because of who she is. She carries herself like someone who has met both heaven and hell and learned how to make peace with both. Her presence is poetry. You feel her more than you see her. You sense that her soul has traveled through storms, yet she carries sunlight in her eyes. There's a quiet resilience there, the kind that doesn't need to be announced. It's simply known. She has learned that real power is not in domination, but in composure. The ability to stay calm when others expect you to break, to stay kind when others are cruel, to stay grounded when chaos tries to pull you under. That kind of strength can't be taught. It's earned through pain, surrender, and rebirth. And rebirth is exactly what she has gone through. Many times. Each time life broke her, it also remade her. Softer, wiser, deeper. She no longer fears falling apart, because she has seen that what shatters is never the truth of who she is. It's only the illusion, the masks, the roles, the attachments. Now, she wears her scars like jewelry, not to boast of the battles she survived, but to remind herself of how beautifully she rose from them. Her wounds no longer define her, they refine her. And this refinement has brought her into harmony with something greater. Grace. The kind of grace that doesn't just forgive others, but forgives herself. She no longer punishes herself for not knowing better in the past. She honors the woman she was, for she was the bridge to the woman she is now. Grace has become her language in how she speaks, how she moves, how she responds. Even when she's misunderstood, she chooses to rise above. Not because she's weak, but because she refuses to lower her frequency. That's what makes her truly irresistible. Not her beauty, not her charm, not even her wisdom, but her energy. Her energy feels like a sanctuary in a world that's constantly rushing. She brings stillness to chaos, compassion to conflict, presence to pain. Her essence teaches without preaching, heals without trying, inspires without effort. And perhaps that's the most beautiful kind of influence, the one that happens naturally, silently, from within. When you encounter a woman like that, she leaves you different. She doesn't have to teach you anything directly. Her very presence becomes a lesson in peace. You find yourself wanting to slow down, to breathe deeper, to speak more gently, because her calm becomes a mirror reflecting what you could also become. And maybe that's what true maturity is. Not perfection, but presence. Not control, but surrender. Not knowing everything, but trusting yourself enough to move with grace through the unknown. She is not here to impress. She is here to express her, to express peace, wisdom, truth, compassion. She's not loud, but her silence carries power. She is not flawless, but her authenticity is divine. And so she walks, slowly, intentionally, gracefully, through the world, radiating a kind of beauty that words can't quite name. The kind that doesn't fade with age, doesn't waver with attention, and doesn't depend on anyone's validation. Because she has finally remembered who she is, and that remembrance has set her free. She is not trying to be irresistible. She's simply Aisa. In the end, what makes a woman truly irresistible has nothing to do with perfection and everything to do with presence. It is not the way she looks, but the way she lives. It's the grace with which she carries her past, the peace she cultivates in her present, and the quiet confidence she holds for her future. She has learned to live from the inside out, to love without losing herself, to speak without wounding, to walk away without bitterness. She has become a symphony of opposites, soft yet strong, kind yet firm, calm yet powerful. Her allure is not found in the noise of seeking attention, but in the silence of being complete. She no longer chases love, she embodies it. She no longer begs to be seen, she shines effortlessly. Her worth no longer depends on who stays or who leaves. It flows from within, steady and unshakable. This is the essence of the mature woman. A woman who has faced herself and chosen peace, who has been broken and rebuilt with wisdom, who has learned that her strength lies not in resistance, but in surrender. Her beauty is her energy. Her magnetism is her serenity. Her power is her ability to stay rooted in love, even when the world around her forgets what love truly means. And so she walks forward, not needing to prove, not needing to hide, but simply being, unapologetically whole, quietly radiant, irresistibly free.